Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the third annual That's What She Said Columbia. We are so excited to have the theater packed tonight as we raise women's voices in our community for another year. I'm excited to share that you're about to get a sneak peek of Monday's episode of The Daily Blend with AC, featuring some very special guests. Enjoy watching. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of The Daily Blend. I am your host, AC, and we are joined in studio today by the men of That's What She Said. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Well, welcome to the show. This is definitely a first, let me just say. But I want to start, because we don't have much time, so I'm going to start right here with you, Kale. Kale, you happen to be married to the woman who produces this fabulous show, Allie Teagarden.
That's right.
Tell me what you get to experience behind the scenes all year long, waiting for this amazing show.
It's been really exciting to see it go from an idea that Allie was just tossing around several years ago to becoming now, in year 3, full-fledged production that has a big impact. So each year after the show, Allie gets inundated with testimonials of people talking about how empowering and inspiring the show is. So that's really cool to see.
I would imagine it is. David Clitheroe, let's talk to you. You guys have been supporters at Hawthorne Bank. Why do you continue to support That's What She Said?
We started with the very first year, and we thought it was a neat concept, a wonderful way to recognize women leaders in our community, and I would say it was a no-brainer as far as I was concerned. We've got a tremendous number of wonderful female business owners and leaders that are our customers, but we also have leaders in our bank that are women. And it just was a good marriage of, if you will, of how we can honor women, reinforce the great work that they do in our community, and help Allie get what I think is a signature event going here in Columbia. So it really wasn't a hard decision for us to make.
Yeah. Now, Jim, Yankee, you guys are the presenting sponsor this year. So this is your first year being involved as Flat Branch Bank. Tell me why it was important for you, new bank, to jump right in.
Yeah, well, I didn't know a whole lot about the event, if I'm being honest, going in. But the more I learned, it's such a great thing to allow women to be empowered. And having Flat Branch Home Loans has always been a women-led organization, and now Flat Branch Bank. So I feel like it's important to give back to help events that do so much for our female or business community here in town. So I'm honored to be involved.
Thank you, Jim. Jay, business coach for That's What She Said. And I mean, Jay, I guess you've been involved since before the first event even really happened.
For sure. Allie came in to Ready, where I was working at the time, and it was wonderful to, again, almost like DC said, it was a no-brainer to assist and help. And in my role as a super connector in town, connecting Adonica Coleman and Allie Teagarden was a no-brainer. And ever since then, I think the results have spoken for themselves.
Yeah, I would say, and thank you for that.
You will, yeah.
By the way, thank you for that. I do remember the phone call where you said there's somebody that you need to meet.
They're going to be reaching out. Yep.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And Charles, for you have gotten to be behind the scenes.
I have.
So you've probably gotten to see quite a lot. I mean, as the official photographer for That's What She Said, every year, right?
Every year, yeah. When Allie first approached me as before year 1, I could just see the passion she had for it. And I didn't know what that was going to translate to for the actual event. But then shooting the event and seeing the impact that it had on the crowd and the women that were there, I just knew that I was going to sign on for as long as she would have me.
Yeah. And I mean, dude, you take some...
I appreciate that.
I mean, really, you take some kick-ass pictures, let me just say.
Thank you.
Seriously, you capture not just the women who are on the stage, but the attendees as they are coming in, and you capture that excitement as people are coming in. Because I'm going to tell you, when people are coming into the theater, they are excited. People are excited walking in. You can see it on their faces, and you capture that. And I always appreciate and look forward to seeing those photos afterwards, and I know the attendees do as well. So everybody is in for a treat with seeing this show. What's it like at home after the show is over?
Well, what's really cool is that the show not only showcases and honors our vibrant community, but it also builds community, not just among the speakers. I've also had my community expanded, which is really cool. So like you were a past speaker, so I'm blessed to get to see you quite often, right? Dr. Tachelle Bourdaire spoke, and she's one of my close friends already. It's been great to catch up with Gina Yu at her restaurants. I am fortunate to be able to take my daughter to see Meredith Shaw, who's a musician, who is a singer-songwriter, who spoke previously. And then, of course, see Mayor Buffalo out and about working in the town. So it's really great to be able to connect with these women.
Yeah, it is. It is. So, Jim, for you this year, first year being presenting sponsor, what are you looking forward to as a new experience for you? What are you looking forward to?
Well, I'm looking forward to just connecting and meeting new people. All of these guys today, it's already been great. So the event hasn't even happened. I'm already happy to be here. So I'm just excited to see it all, and I've heard a lot about it. Yeah.
Jay, as somebody who got a chance to sit with Allie before, and now it's 3 years in, and you get to see this event come to life, what excites you the most about where we are today?
Just seeing the roster of speakers continue to grow, seeing different facets of this community that I've put down roots in, get to show off and hear voices that we don't often get to hear. Allie's got a great vision for what she sees. I mean, even before year one, I think whatever we get in year 5 and 6 and 7, that was already in the notebook, that was already being planned. And it's just great to help realize that vision in some small way.
Yeah, it is. I will say that as somebody who has gotten the opportunity to do this intro every year and has gotten a chance to stand on the stage and be a speaker and to sit in the audience and watch, just to be a participant, hearing women's voices is so important. And the way Allie goes about selecting, she's so careful, so meticulous in what she does. You know that this is going to be a show that you will remember. You will hear something, you will be moved by something, you will be touched by something, you will laugh, you will cry, you will remember. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was so much fun getting to spend some time with these wonderful men in our community who have played an important role behind the scenes of this show. But it's time to get back to the women. So without further delay, please welcome onto the stage the producer and director of That's What She Said Columbia, Allie Teagarden.
Well, good evening, friends. It's an honor to have each and every one of you here with us tonight, whether this is your first time experiencing That's What She Said Columbia, or if you've been with us from the very beginning. I realized after tonight, 28 remarkable women from our community will have graced this stage. And I know some of our former speakers are out in the audience tonight. If you want to give us a little shout. Yes. I am immensely grateful for every woman who has said yes to being a part of this powerful night for our community over the years. We are all better for having bared witness to them standing in their power and speaking their truth. So as we get ready to welcome this year's incredible speakers out onto the stage, I wanted to share some ground rules with you all. Audience engagement is encouraged throughout the night, so please do not be shy. We want you to cheer on our speakers as they share their moments of triumph. Please laugh along with them as they share some of the funny stories from their lives. And with that, we also know that life can be brutal. And our speakers have done a beautiful, thoughtful job crafting the harder parts of their stories, which they'll also share with you tonight. So this is a safe space to take in all the feelings and feel all the things as you go through this journey with us and hear these stories tonight. And we do want you to be aware of the mental health resources that are available to you tonight at the theater. So we have the incredible team from Better Together Mental Health on the aisles in the back. So if you need to take a moment at any point, please pop out down the aisles and they will be glad to support you and speak with you this evening. And then there's also going to be some support offered after the show if you'd like to gather with folks from this room and kind of process some of the stories that were shared tonight and how that may have impacted you on a personal level. But our hope is that after tonight you feel a little less alone in your own life journey as you hear these brave women share from their hearts. I came across an article this winter written by Shannon Watts, and if you're not familiar with her, she is a gun violence prevention activist and the founder of Moms Demand Action. She wrote, and I'll paraphrase, "We need spaces for women in every arena, online, in real life, in activism, in community, and in joy. We need a women's sphere where we can come together in person from all walks of life to feel empowered, supported, and seen. And we need to create a women's sphere that is as loud and visible as the manosphere, but infinitely more constructive. So, build your community, find your people, start the conversation. This isn't about perfection, this is about progress. The women's sphere starts now, and it starts with us." So, thank you all for being a part of our mission to raise women's voices in Columbia. And now it is my honor to welcome out to the stage our 2025 That's What She Said Columbia speakers.
To get praise, take up bars, allow us to face. See me now, I'm loud and proud. And to those who fear leads them to hate.
Hi everyone, I'm Greta Gunderson.
And I'm Ava. And I'm Ava Gunderson. We wanted to make that clear, because sometimes we get confused for each other.
We are the sisters that own Son of a Gun, the bar across the street from the Blue Note here in downtown Columbia. I moved here 11 years ago for my freshman year at Mizzou, and I fell in love with Columbia and the community right away.
I, on the other hand, did not move to Columbia until Greta forced me to open the bar, and I'm very grateful that she did.
For the curious ones, we're a little bit less than 2 years apart, 22 months to be exact, and wow, did a lot happen in the time before Ava came into the picture.
Greta, nothing happened in those 2 years.
I guess you're right. I did have to wait for you to come along to start my rock selling business.
You see, Son of a Gun is not our first business venture together.
Yeah, the first one was more of a wholesale retail situation, but I digress.
Greta's referring to the time that she would take rocks out of the landscaping in front of our house and sell them to me. And I would turn around. And sell them to our little brother, for a markup, obviously.
So yeah, Son of a Gun is not the first business endeavor we've done together.
But really, opening a bar together was not a lifelong dream of ours, as sisters or separately. I don't think we really thought about it ever. Then again, it's not really something most kids dream about.
I wanted to be a vet. Ava wanted to be a teacher.
But you start to grow up, and your life starts taking form, and you slowly but surely figure out what it is you want to do.
I struggled with this a lot. I went to Mizzou, I got my degree in marketing, I went on to a corporate job, the whole shebang. And I was miserable. I knew this wasn't what I was supposed to be doing, and I tried everything. And I mean that literally. I was a total job hopper. COVID is when I finally sort of figured it out. I was 3 years post-grad. Ava had just graduated from the University of Nebraska, Omaha, and both of us were working full-time in marketing.
In different states.
Both bartending on the side through the insanity that was COVID. I kept moving, kept job hopping, kept being relatively unhappy. I finally took a hard look in the mirror and figured out what I truly loved, creating and cultivating community. I know it sounds like I'm lying because what 25-year-old says that? But truly, I felt like I had been focusing on what technical skills I wanted to create a career out of, when really I needed to focus on making a career out of my soft skills. So once I figured that part out, it was just putting everything together like a puzzle.
While Greta was figuring out her puzzle, I was living in Omaha, and when I left my corporate job to bartend and manage a bar full-time, I thought it would be a transition period. And turns out it was, but not in the way I imagined. I stayed at that bar for 2 years, and that place became my life. As a very popular bar, I would sometimes hear, what makes that place so special? And it was one thing, the people. In that 900 square foot hallway, we laughed, cried, danced on the bar, and knew almost everyone's name when they walked in the door. I realized I was really good at creating a space like that, but I couldn't stay forever, and I knew it was time for me to get out of Omaha. And suddenly, I was spiraling, calling my big sister, trying to figure out what was next for me.
So, while we're both going through the motions in our own ways, we were also working together to establish a common goal. Our mom had always said that she thought we would own a business or do something together, but I definitely don't think this is what she was thinking.
And looking back, it seems absolutely insane. It still feels insane to this day. But at the time, it felt like the most obvious decision in the world.
So once we decided on what we were going to do, the next question was where? I was living in Nashville at this point. Ava was still in Omaha. We had decided what we wanted to build together, but we didn't want to build it in either of our respective markets. I had to dig a little bit deeper and get back to the root of this idea, community. And where I felt the strongest about community? My bartending job at Roxy's in downtown Columbia, Missouri. Again, it sounded crazy to say out loud. But I started conjuring up my plan to convince Ava to move from our large hospitality-focused markets to Columbia, Missouri.
So one day, on our usual 2-hour-long phone calls, she starts sending me spreadsheets and a listing for a cute little building on 9th Street. And for some reason, I was in. I trusted her vision, and I was ready to move to a town in the middle of Missouri where I didn't know a single person.
So we moved to Columbia together, me for a second time, Ava for the first time.
It was my first time moving outside of Omaha, and not only was I taking a chance on the town, the community, and this new business, but I was taking a chance on myself.
So now that we've settled on a location, we had to come up with a name for our bar.
And in Greta's attempt to convince me that this was a good idea, she had already come up with a couple name options, one of which was Son of a Gun. And for those of you that still haven't put it together, Son of a Gun is a play on our last name, Gunderson.
Don't worry, some of our closest friends still haven't put it together. So while we're navigating this new version of us, the business version of us, if I may, we were also doing a ton of the physical labor at Son of a Gun.
Yep, we built a majority of Son of a Gun by ourselves. We laid the flooring, the tile work, put what seemed like 100 coats of paint on everything. I distinctly remember the look of fear when one of our contractors stopped in his tracks walking into the bar while we were laying the flooring.
2 young gals, stained leggings, hair a mess, middle of August, laying on the floor of a half-finished retail space turned sort of bar.
So next time you're in the bar, don't look too closely. And if you do, please know that some very tired girls did it, and give us some grace.
So basically, even the execution of our idea to create a space with community at its core was exactly that before we even opened. We were immersing ourselves in the community each day, laying the groundwork for what we wanted Son of a Gun to be emotionally, in a physical sense, floor tile by floor tile.
We opened Son of a Gun in October of 2023, and it was pretty evident within our first few months of opening that this community we wanted to build was building. And it has continued to grow each and every day, and it's truly been magical.
That first year, the staff was just us and our one bartender, Jacob, so it felt a little bit weird to have a holiday party for just the 3 of us. So Ava and I went to dinner together, and then we just got Jacob a gift card.
Our community doesn't just include our employees or our regulars. It's people like Jacob's wife, Jordan, who owns Muse Pole Fitness, who's extended a hand on a multitude of different situations, just as we have with her. Everyone, truly everyone, that has come into our little bar has made an intentional mark on both Son of a Gun and us as humans.
Now, we're lucky to have a full-fledged team. We finally were able to have an actual holiday party. We even invited one of our regulars turned best friends to join us at this year's holiday party. Reminder, he does not work for us. Community building at its finest.
Every day, Columbia continues to reaffirm how amazing it really is.
Not only has our staff made this all possible, so many small business owners have helped us along the way. They gave advice, physically helped us out, shared their resources, and made Columbia feel even more like home.
But it wasn't just other small business owners, it was everyone. Everyone who walked through our doors helped shape us into who we are and how we operate as business owners today.
Like Brandon and Kelsey, 2 of our closest friends who shared their first kiss at Son of a Gun, and just a few months ago, got engaged at Son of a Gun. That moment was incredibly significant for us. We said we wanted to build community, and we're doing it. And I think we might be kind of good at it. Seeing that happen in front of our own eyes was really crazy, and I think helped us confirm who we are as people and as business owners.
And that's the kind of magic we're talking about.
It's pretty magical that we get to build this and experience this together as sisters.
People often ask us how we get along so well and never fight. And the truth is, we do on occasion, like any other siblings or business partners.
But for us, there's no filter or separation of our relationship as sisters and business partners like there may be in a normal partnership. It's not for everyone, but it works for us.
Our lives are extremely legally joined together. Not to mention, we've lived together for the past 3 years. In fact, in the beginning of Son of a Gun, we lived together in a one-bedroom apartment, meaning we shared a bed every single night with a dog.
I hear that extended laugh. As you can imagine, this level of closeness sometimes has been a problem for our boyfriends over the years. Ava ranks above everyone and everything else in my life.
It's a huge tell if a guy can handle our dynamic as sisters and their place in our lives. They can never seem to understand our relationship and how we can fight like hell, but also be each other's person. We've honestly dropped guys for not being able to get it.
It's my sister. She's my best friend. Even if I absolutely hated her right now, that doesn't change anything. She is my number one, and even if that wasn't the case, we genuinely do not have an option. Separating our things would be more complicated than a divorce because you know what? After everything, we still have to go to Christmas together.
And our mom is not letting us skip Christmas.
And yet, as much as we were surrounded by so much love and support and each other constantly, owning a business, especially at our age, is lonely.
We quickly realized that we're at a very different point in our lives and careers than all of our friends, and we're so much younger than a lot of our colleagues. Owning a business is hard no matter what age you're at, but simultaneously navigating our 20s has been quite a ride.
Every 1 or 2 years of my 20s kind of has had its own theme, and those years have been filled with so much change.
Greta and I's day-to-days, lives and challenges look drastically different now, even though we're so close in age. I have no idea what the next few years hold for me. I'm navigating a new industry, the joys of dating, and that fun little quarter-life crisis period of existential dread, trying to figure out what comes next.
I understand where Ava's at deeply, but I finally feel like I've emerged from that phase. I turned 29 this year. I'm in the process of buying a home and planning for the future with my partner. I've navigated the change of my 20s, and now I'm ready to stay the course and enjoy the ride.
And even though we're on different pages in the book of life at the current moment, we're also both starting new chapters in the form of new business ventures. I just opened a new Pilates studio in Kansas City. Greta's opening another bar in Kansas City. And while these businesses are totally separate from each other, we still consult each other often and rely on one another. I would have quit 100 times if I didn't have my sister by my side.
We rely on each other a lot for a multitude of things.
We always have, and we always will.
We're very different people with very different strengths, and while that does come with an occasional challenge, I think it makes us even stronger together as a team.
Greta fills in my gaps, and I fill in hers.
And no matter what, at the end of the day,
after last call, we walk out of the bar as sisters.
In February of 1980, I found my 30-year-old self divorced and back in my small hometown of Hannibal, Missouri. My mother opened her home to me and my 2 sons, who were at the time ages 10 and 13. She said we could stay as long as we needed, and I was grateful. I had never been alone before. I had gone straight from being a teenager in my mother's house to a wife and mother. My father lived in Hannibal also, and though he divorced from my mother when I was very young, I kept in touch with him. In the midst of my divorce, not having my own place to live, 2 boys to raise, and no job, I discovered that my father had stage 4 colon cancer. I was devastated and overwhelmed on multiple fronts. Let me back up and admit that I married in June of 1967, and my oldest son, Garrett, was born in October of the same year. You can probably do the math. And while I still managed to graduate from high school the following June with a 4.0 GPA, college just wasn't an option for me at that point. It goes without saying that I did some things backwards. I didn't always make the best decisions, and my timing was occasionally in poor taste. But I am so incredibly grateful for my 2 sons, I won't complain. My lesson learned, don't let one misstep define you. Some of you may recall in the late 1960s and early 70s, businesses felt some pressure to hire minorities through the affirmative action policies. No specific quotas were mandated, but it did open doors for some minorities, and I was one of them. In 1970, I was approached by an executive from a local bank, and I readily accepted their employment offer. I started out in the insurance department and immediately discovered I wasn't a speed typist. So that position wasn't going to work for me. I was then transferred to the teller and retail operations area, and literally, I was all over it. That jump-started my banking career. I will forever be grateful to affirmative action, even with all of its flaws. My lesson learned, make the most of every opportunity. As the former wife of a career soldier, we moved around from base to base, and I always found a job at the bank on base. So when I moved back to Hannibal, I had 10 years banking experience. I applied for jobs at all the banks in Hannibal. Actually, a total of 3. Remember, Hannibal is a small town. None were hiring at the time. Keep in mind, too, that even in 1980, most of the tellers in the bank were white women, and white men were loan officers for the most part. I called the vice president of hiring at Commerce Bank every Friday afternoon for 6 weeks. Finally, he offered me a job. I worked incredibly hard and moved up within the bank. I began as a teller, and I left the Hannibal location as assistant vice president 10 years later. My lesson learned, be persistent and do more than is expected. So in 1990, I was promoted and transferred from the Commerce Bank in Hannibal to a Commerce location in Columbia. My career was well on its way. I worked for and with some outstanding people, both male and female. With both my boys in college, I was a proud mother. I always told them I would go to college after they graduated. We couldn't all be in college at the same time. The day my youngest son, Michael, graduated, he said, "Mom, this means you need to register for college." Well, my lesson learned, say what you mean and mean what you say. As the infamous Dr. Seuss said, sometimes you will never know the value of a moment until it becomes a memory. Because my sons counted on me to always be a person of my word, I needed to prepare to go to college. Fortunately, I partnered with my best friend at work, and we enrolled in the new weekend college at Stevens College. I absolutely love my time at Stevens. I graduated with a bachelor's in business administration and went on from there to gain an MBA from William Woods University. My goal from the day one was to complete my college education without any student debt. My family knew that for birthdays and Christmas, I didn't want gifts. I just wanted a payment toward or for a class. Those gifts, plus the tuition assistance program at Commerce, helped me to graduate from both schools debt-free. I am grateful that my career continued to progress, and I had incredible support from my employer. Completing my college education was very important to me, and I can recall how proud my mother and sons were. My lesson learned: cherish the moments that matter. I retired from Commerce Bank in 2016 after 36 years, having been promoted from a teller through the ranks and eventually to executive regional vice president. Aside from mothering two very successful young men and working full-time, I consider myself now to be a professional volunteer. With a passion, of course, of working primarily with organizations that support the local African American community. Giving back to my community and being a servant leader is, for me, a lifetime commitment. One could look at my calendar and think I'm still working. It's generally that full of meetings and activities. I am certainly not living the life I initially dreamed of, but I am incredibly thankful for the life I have. My work now has shifted from professional banking to volunteer and community advocacy work. I want to do my part in helping others realize their dreams, to stand up for those who are disenfranchised, to speak out when equity and diversity is challenged, to support scholarships for minority students, and to be a fearless supporter and fighter for civil rights. My lesson learned: my final lesson to share is a mantra for me, and maybe for some of you as well. A quote from the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?
When I immigrated to the US as a 9-year-old, my elementary school teachers immediately welcomed me and my family. My sisters and I did not speak a word of English. It was the Carter era, and my public school generously assigned me tutors, one of each subject in English, history, science, and speech. I did not need one for math because I was 3 years ahead of my classmates. Every year, the teachers encouraged me and my family to share my culture with my class, showing them traditional kimono, how to fold origami. Some people were genuinely confused, though. At the time, there was only one other Asian family in Cheshire, Connecticut, who ran a Chinese restaurant. So you can imagine, I was often asked by many people why my family did not run a Japanese restaurant. The fact that I did not know how to talk back left me defenseless to the cruelty of the kids in my neighborhood. Looking back, I can only imagine how my parents dealt with this frustration. My mom was a tiger mom. I did not know the term until Amy Chua wrote her book in 2011, and I realized my mother was exactly that. Having a tiger mom is far worse than having a helicopter mom. She was very hard on me, and I did not get along with her while I lived with her. Now that I'm a mother myself, I often wonder how much of my mother's need for me to excel was caused by her own challenges with the culture shock we experienced when we moved to the States. My mom did pity me for being constantly bullied by this one boy who lived across the street, who took too much interest and joy in teasing me. I will never forget this one spring day in 5th grade. I was practicing piano in my living room when suddenly rock music blasted right outside. Soon a couple of boys started laughing outside the window. While I recovered from my shock, my angry mother ran outside, grabbed a garden hose, doused them their boombox, and then chased them across the street. My friends now always ask why I have not taught my family how to speak Japanese. While I do find Japanese to be a beautiful language, I admit I have a very complex relationship with the language because it represented everything that was negative about me as I grew up in the States. It was the reason why I didn't speak better English. It was why I was bullied by my neighbors. And since my parents forced me to speak Japanese at home, I could no longer express myself once I became a teenager using my rusty 3rd grade Japanese. I grew up in a time before Duolingo and before the internet was available. But my parents kept assuring me that music was an international language. During the summer when I turned 12, I went to a 6-week music camp in Vermont. I loved everybody and everything about it, and it was the first time I felt I was home where I belonged. I knew I was going to be a pianist. I attended music festival every year for over a decade. I did not attend Juilliard Preparatory School like many Connecticut music students did during the school year, but I made up for it by loving every moment of practicing and making music more than anyone else. I had a financially privileged upbringing, but was even more fortunate to have the emotional support of a mentor who became like a second mom to me. Throughout my angsty teenage years, my piano teacher of 9 years, Lena Carrera Crothers, was everything I saw in a mentor. I remember many lessons where I would just talk to her about my troubles at home. Later, I found out she worked with orchestra conductor Phil Ventry to make my attendance at Cho Rosemary Hall possible. This enabled me to get away from my challenges at home, studying and practicing music from 8 a.m. until 10, sometimes 11 p.m. When Mrs. Crothers was told she couldn't teach me piano any longer because she was not a Cho teacher, she decided to pick me up from school, drive me to neighborhood music school in New Haven where she taught, and then drive me back. It was a generosity I could never repay. In my senior year, I stayed with my dean as a boarding student after my family moved to Michigan so that I could graduate from the same high school. I went on an audition tour that year. My last one was at Curtis Institute, where I suffered my first ever memory slip. Devastated by a ruined chance to attend Curtis, I was in tears coming down the stairs after my failed audition. Meanwhile, my mother befriended another student, also named Ayako, and decided to invite her to join us for lunch. As we exited the building, this other Ayako greeted her friend. "Hi, Peter." Instead of going to Curtis, I spent 4 years at Juilliard, loving everything New York City had to offer. But growing up in Connecticut, I had always wanted to study with pianist Claude Frank at Yale for my graduate studies, so that's what I did. In the second year of my master's, a new tenant name stood out in my apartment building, Peter Miyamoto. Neither of us remembered our first meeting at Curtis, but we became very good friends in the 2 years we overlapped at Yale. But it took us 4 countries and 10 years of friendship and long hours of phone calls before fate would bring us back together, only to compete for a tenure-track job here at Mizzou. He won the job, but I think I did better. I stayed, and we got married, and suddenly I find myself directing the Odyssey Chamber Music series, something that I have been doing for 21 years. At the time, I knew nothing about music business or what a nonprofit was, but I knew I loved music enough to figure it out, and I did. My experience in directing Odyssey is not unlike my experience raising my daughter. The love for what I do is so great that I am willing to give my absolute best, and then some. Columbia is filled with musically educated audiences thanks to Mizzou and Missouri Symphony. So it's been a tremendous joy to do the work that I do. So, how ironic is it that for someone who found English to be a lifelong nemesis to be standing here speaking to you tonight? Much like I found a sense of belonging through music, I believe I've now found English to be my comfort language. After all, Peter and I named our daughter Lauren. With an L, an R, both letters which are very difficult for Japanese to pronounce. Speaking of irony, remember that neighborhood boy? Well, he found me on Facebook a few years ago. He apologized and explained that he was taking his own frustrations out on me all those years ago. He said he hoped that I was doing okay now, that he had not caused any permanent psychological damage. I am soon coming back to this Missouri theater for the 3rd weekend in a month for some sort of performance. Last time it was Plum Chamber Music Competition, tonight here, and the next time it will be as the pianist, one of the pianists for the Marek Dance's Cinderella. Thanks to music, the family I created, and this community, I know I'm doing more than okay.
Everyone's story starts somewhere. Mine started as the oldest daughter, one of 3 girls. The traits that you would expect from a type A firstborn daughter became indoctrinated at a very young age to a toxic level. The first time my mother left me alone to watch my 2 baby sisters, I was so young I couldn't even tell time. "I'll be back when this hand is on this number," she said. To this day, I don't know if she got back on time. I just remember being in charge of my baby sisters, one of whom was merely a few months old, and I was no more than 5. That is the first time that I remember feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. I've lived a life always trying to achieve and be perfect and be in charge. I can do it was always my answer. If I could do it bigger and better than anyone else, then I would be worthy. When I was left alone in the hospital after having my 3rd baby by my husband who left to go see his mistress, I said, I can do this. When I felt alone, deep in the throes of supporting my oldest child in her own pain, I said, I can do it. When I decided to take on the mantle of business owner, I could do that. And when COVID hit just a few months after taking full ownership and responsibility of my company, I said, I can do this. When I ran for city council and became the target of horrible social media fodder by people that I did not even know, I told myself, you can do this too. When friendships and relationships I counted on to be reciprocal proved that they were not, it didn't matter, I could do it by myself. When the business was faltering and I had to make very hard choices about how to save it, I did it because I could, and at this point, because I had to. Over the years, I can do it became I have to do it. The sneaky desperation of needing to be good enough was the driving force, but nothing was ever good enough. I could not stop carrying the weight of everything and everyone. And I sure as hell couldn't stop carrying the guilt and shame of all of the bad decisions I had made along the way. They were stones that I just kept carrying, one on top of another, on top of another. No grace or forgiveness for me. I didn't deserve it because I had not done enough. Until there came a day when I could no longer do it. Though saying it happened one day isn't exactly right. It dragged me under the waves so slowly that I didn't even notice it. I no longer thought I could do it. Hell, I no longer wanted to do it. The only way I can describe the pain I was in during this time is to refer to it as pain I wore like skin. It physically felt painful. My body and my mind were done. It was inescapable and it was all-encompassing. The harder I tried to keep anyone else from knowing this, the less well I got. The first time I tried to take my own life was on Labor Day weekend of 2022. I had obsessively cleaned the house, which I realized later was that if anyone found me, they would realize I had been good at keeping house. I had succeeded in that. It was one of those days that I just couldn't be awake. The pain was too much. I took a Xanax, then I took 4, then I took several blood pressure pills and some Celexa, and then I laid down because I just wanted to go to sleep. But then I got up again, and I took several more. Not handfuls, just slowly, one, then another, then another. And then I really laid back down. I'm not convinced I was trying to end my life that day, but I'm also not convinced that I wasn't. I hadn't done any research or planned how many pills it would take. I just took a lot. And then I remember thinking the next morning when I woke up, shit, I woke up. I was deep in trouble at this point, but I did not fully realize it. And neither did anyone else, because I would never let them. Then, October 3rd of 2022 came. It was a Monday after another hard weekend, another day of obsessive cleaning. But this time, I knew. I woke up that morning knowing a local gun store had a gun waiting for me, and today would be the day I would pick it up. When I got to the store, the guys ran the usual background checks, but for some reason the system wasn't working. They called that odd. But they said I would be able to come back later when it was back up and running, and I would not be able to get it at that time. I left deeply upset. I drove around trying to figure out what plan B would be. I found myself downtown looking up at all of the buildings and sobbing because I couldn't even do this well. But something in me was still fighting to survive. That something made me pick up the phone and call Megan Steen. She is now my very best friend, and this is not why. But on this day, she was just a friend, one who worked for Rural Behavioral Health, and one who had been part of my company's training on suicide prevention. Isn't that ironic? And also the only person I could think to call. I called Megan, and when she answered, I could do nothing but sob. I was broken and doing the worst thing I could possibly think of, which was admitting to someone that I couldn't do it. Megan sprang into action and made arrangements for me to meet her at Rural Crisis Center because, of course, I refused an ambulance. The rest is a bit of a blur. I remember the sweetest guy in the world just trying to talk to me, and I couldn't even form words. I could do nothing but cry. He kindly suggested that what I needed most was to be surrounded by people who wanted to take care of me and who could help me. And that's when I went to Centerpoint. I was there for a week. I think it was 2 days before I finally stopped crying. I could talk for a long time about my week-long grippy sock vacation, as I call it now. But that's not for us today. I'll just say that I felt very much like I did not belong there with those people. I wasn't that bad, and God forbid anyone find out where I was. I worked very hard to control things from the hospital. I told everyone that I had COVID as an explanation for missing a business trip and being away from work. I didn't even tell my kids or family until my oldest daughter got suspicious about why my location had moved on Life 360 and why I wasn't answering her calls. When I came home, I did feel better, and I even felt some relief after being forced to admit where I had been. I did become obsessed with making sure everyone knew I was okay. The I can do it vibe came back with a vengeance. But now I was forced to face it because people knew. I learned that I had been operating as though I could make all the pain go away if I built something big enough or achieved enough. And that was the most dangerous part of all, because it kept pushing me. I had to learn that crashing doesn't mean never returning unless you end it, which I almost did. My healing process has come with some very painful decisions, like walking away from toxic friendships and situations, and even leaving the company that I put blood, sweat, and tears into for 11 years. I have had to learn that what other people think about me does not matter. It seems cliche, but it's really hard to embrace. I've also had to forgive myself for allowing myself to get that bad. No one has been meaner to anyone than I have been mean to myself, and this I am still working on. There's something I need everyone to know. If you're the loved one of someone who has been in the place that I was, to my family and my children and my close friends, please never think you were not enough to keep me here. It wasn't a choice for or against those I loved. The darkness became so dark that I could not see you anymore. But also know this, you're my biggest joy, and the reason that I have committed to becoming the healthiest version of myself so I can be here for you as long as God will let me. My final message for you and for myself tonight is please do not play someone else's character. When it gets quiet, what is your spirit telling you? What is your body telling you? Do whatever you need to do to honor yourself first. I know you can do it, and I know I can too. If you or someone you know needs help, please use the mental health resources provided tonight. Call 988 or call me. And always, always remember, it's you we want to see and love and keep around. Your messy, imperfect, unique, beautiful self.
Welcome back from intermission. We are so excited for you to hear more powerful stories in this second half of the show. But first, please welcome back to the stage, Allie Teagarden.
So before we continue with the show, I want to thank our incredible sponsors who've made tonight possible. Our community continues to embrace our mission to lift women's voices, and I'm immensely grateful. If you're a sponsor for That's What She Said Columbia, please stand or wave so we can express our appreciation. And I also want to give a special thanks to a few specific sponsors. So first, thanks to our presenting sponsor, Flat Branch Bank, who is the only locally owned bank in Columbia. And while they are owned by a man, hi Jim, I do want to note that their leadership team is made up entirely of women. It has really been an honor to bring recognition to such an empowering, community-minded institution. We also want to recognize our empowering sponsors, so thanks to Pretty Little Things for designing our beautiful stage set again this year. Thank you to Logboat Brewing Company, Wave Cider Company, Les Bourgeois Vineyards, Gunter Hans, and 63 Liquor for serving as our beverage sponsors this year. Cheers to them. And finally, thanks to our media sponsors, the Como 411, Como Marketing, and KOPN 89.5 FM. You all have been with me from the very beginning, and I'm so grateful for the way that you have championed this show year after year. So if you want to continue this celebration, please join us at our after party presented by Gunter Hans. You'll get a complimentary beer, signature cocktail or mocktail, and enjoy live music by the A-Frame Trio with Cameron Faith. Capacity is limited. Last time I checked, I think we had about 25 tickets left. So I'd encourage you to hop on your phones now and scan the QR code on the screen or in your playbill if you're planning to join us and get your ticket while you can. And folks that are coming, please enter Gunter Hans at the south entrance that sits off the alley on Hitt Street. That'll be the main entrance for tonight. Every That's What She Said show supports a charitable cause, and it's our privilege to donate 25% of the ticket sale revenue from tonight's show to support single moms with housing and utility assistance through our nonprofit partner, Love Columbia. 1 in 5 Colombians live in poverty, and many folks in our community struggle to make ends meet, find livable wage jobs, or safe, affordable housing. Many of the people served by Love Columbia have nowhere else to turn. Everyone needs hope and someone to accompany them on their journey, and that's what the wonderful folks at Love Columbia do each and every day. So if you're here tonight as a sponsor or if your employer provided you with a ticket, I would really encourage you to consider making a donation, even a small one, to Love Columbia tonight. You can use the QR code on the screen or in your playbill, and every dollar really makes a tremendous difference for the folks in our community. So please join me in thanking the staff and the volunteers from Love Columbia who are out in the audience with us for their tremendous service to our community. And now, without further ado, let's welcome back our That's What She Said Columbia speakers.
I remember first meeting Allie at the Missouri Women's Business Center back in 2022 and her telling me about starting this event. And here we are, 3 years in. Last fall, I posted a Facebook status that said, I think I want to write a memoir. A few days later, I received a message from Allie saying, I saw your post and wanted to see if you would like to be a part of the speakers for the next show. I've been holding space for you for a while, though I wasn't sure if it was the right time, but it looks like you are ready. I was frozen, stuck, lost for words. And here I am. I had contemplated what I should speak about, because at my age, it's not hard to have a colorful life of antics. During your childhood, family experiences, joys, heartbreaks, love, marriage, children, divorce 1, divorce 2, successes, and the list goes on. Now, it is important to note that I'm a very private person, and I mean a very private person. But sometimes things are out of your control, and your life sometimes becomes public, something that's being talked about, put under a microscope, and sometimes assumptions made. The last 5 years of my story has been defined by my 18-year-old daughter, Nadria Wright. I say her name every chance I can. She was murdered on September 14th of 2019. That sentence, my 18-year-old daughter, Nadria Wright, was murdered, still shakes me to my core. The story was a very public story here in this community. So tonight, I won't talk a lot about the story, except to say that everything she has been portrayed to be, she absolutely was. Intelligent, beautiful, giving, a great friend, a loving family member, especially to her nephews. She absolutely was and still is in spirit. My family has an angel that watches over us. Okay. During these, thank you. During these last 5 years, people perceived me as having a lot of strength, but I was just getting by, trying to make it one day at a time, like a lot of us do. Most saw the Shaunda who was working hard, running a business, starting a nonprofit, and being a shoulder to cry on, and a voice for others in similar situations. People would say, "You are so strong," or "I don't know how you do it." And I always responded, "I keep going because of the people that support me and who've never given up on me, and mostly importantly for my children and my 3 grandsons," which was true to an extent. But the real truth was I was barely keeping it going, and there was no part of me that felt strong. I was, in fact, in shambles. Right after Nadria was killed, I had started losing a significant amount of weight. so I just couldn't eat. See, when the ER doctor had came in and said that they had tried to do everything that they absolutely could to save her, but they couldn't, I became sick to my stomach instantly. My grief started in my stomach, and it stayed there, while my heart and my mind battled my new reality. We all know the world doesn't stop because you're going through trials and tribulations, and I knew the world wasn't stopping then. So I had to keep it moving day by day while carrying grief on my shoulders. Honestly, grief had taken over my entire body. But you know the saying, if you don't sit down, your body will sit you down? Well, that's what happened. And on December 21st of 2020, I ended up in the ER, barely breathing and walking, lugging my computer bag filled with all of my important work stuff that I had to do. Since July of that year, I had experienced extreme continuous fatigue. But what do? You catch snoozes when you can, and you keep facing the world. You put on a fake smile, not to make anyone feel uncomfortable, not knowing what to say. I didn't like people feeling sorry for me or to feel pity, not outrightly anyway. So you just keep it moving. By the time I ended up in the hospital, my entire body had had enough. After reviewing my blood work for the second time, because they thought the first one was incorrect because of the concerning results. Oh, sorry. Multiple doctors had came rushing into the room in a frenzy. I ended up staying in the hospital for a week, receiving iron transfusions and blood transfusions. My hemoglobin was a 2, when it should have been a 12. Upon discharge, I was referred to 3 specialists and put on medical leave for a year. My body had come close to essentially shutting down. On my discharge day, one of the doctors said to me, "You are one strong lady." And there it was again. I am strong. But I wasn't. I was sad and depressed. I was tired. I missed my baby, and I wanted Nadria back. Every day, I woke up early, saying to myself, I have to do this again. Another day of life without Nadria. I would go to sleep around 2 a.m., thinking I had to get some rest to make it through the next day, because I had insomnia. I also had bouts of depression, some severe and constant grief that just sat in the pit of my stomach and my heart. Most of the time I didn't want to be here in this world and wondered why they saved me at the hospital. But there I was, getting up every day, running a business, working a part-time job, smiling, being pleasant to people, helping others, and telling myself I had to be here for my children. But what kind of help was I really to them, or anyone for that matter, if I couldn't even help myself? See, I had plenty of time to think, and believe me, I did. My mind moved constantly, as it always had, but now it was uncontrolled and it was scattered. But one thing I knew was I just had to do better, and I had to stop lying to myself and stop pretending. But how? One morning in 2022, I woke up and I sat on the edge of the bed like I always did. But that morning, I remember lowering my head and crying and saying, "She is gone and she is not coming back." Finally accepting the fact that she was gifted to me and she was not mine to keep. I remembered Psalms, "Children are a gift from the Lord, and they are a reward from Him." And I heard Nadria's voice, just like a whisper. You got this. Mental toughness, Mom. See, this is what Nadria would say when she would, when I'd want to give up on the many different activities that she'd have me doing. Sorry. Like kickboxing or Zumba or attempting to run a 5K. And I would try to stop right in the middle of the warm-ups, exercises. I was trying to stop. And the stretches. Yeah. She'd say, you got this. Mental toughness, Mom. I remember during my divorce in 2017, I was driving Adria to school, and she looked over it and she said, I want to be just like you when I grow up. So I asked her, me? Why me? Nadria said, because you are smart, pretty, and strong. My whole life you keep going no matter what you go through, and you never give up. Nadria was breathing life back into me that morning. And I'm sure that Nadria was tired of my stuff down here as she looked on from heaven. Finally accepting that Nadria was gone, was not returning, and I'm a better now situation. Acceptance moved me towards a new journey in my grief, confrontation. Head-on confrontation. I had to confront some things about myself, my health, mentally and physically, spiritually and financially. And although I would never be the old Shaunda back in her entirety, I needed to get back to the Shaunda that Nadria admired so much, the Shaunda she wanted to be just like. So I began breathing life back into myself, determined to reclaim the fearless, outspoken, loving, snarky, and endlessly joking Shaunda, because everyone knows in my family that I am the funniest person, that they know and I know. I had to get back to her. Acceptance was the first and most crucial step in my healing. Confronting my pain of Nadria's tragic death has given me the strength to move forward. And today I stand proud of how far I've come, hopeful for what is ahead. This has not been or will never be an easy road, and I still have many tough days. But standing here is a testament to my strength and growth. So I keep Nadria close to me wherever I go. And on days when I can't hear her words and I can't, I can look at my wrist and I can read her words with her signature, reminding me, you got this. Mental toughness, Mom.
I grew up in a volatile home in a tough German farming community in northern Ohio, a place where becoming an artist was not understood, let alone encouraged. I always felt different in other ways too, but couldn't name it. And in the 1950s and 60s, there were no significant role models to show me what that difference might mean. In times of trauma and confusion, I often sought refuge in nature. The woods, the rocks, and the water became my sanctuary. I would sit quietly, drawing and painting, expressing what words could not, Art and nature gave me a voice before I even understood what I needed to say. They became my place of calm, healing, and safety, the foundation of who I would become as an artist and a teacher. For 40 years, I tried to fit into a mold that was never mine. Then I made a life-changing decision. I gathered my children around me and came out to them. It was a terrifying choice, but a liberating one. By being honest and vulnerable, I created a space for their truths. Later, one of my children came out as transgender, a moment of profound acceptance and healing that changed her life. With my children's support, I pursued my dream. I applied and was accepted to Heron School of Art and Design, earned my BFA, and later completed 2 master's degrees, one in teaching and another one in painting. I was no longer just a white, cis daughter, sister, and mother, but also a queer artist and an educator. Working in an inner city high school, determined to teach beyond test scores. I saw my students as people, each carrying emotions, experiences, and trauma, and I knew, because I lived it, that creative self-expression could be a tool for healing. Over the years, I have worked with individuals in shelters for the unhoused, adolescents in jail awaiting trial, and children in psychiatric hospitals. Continuing this work, I currently bring therapeutic interventions to women at a Missouri correctional center. All of these folks have sat in our classrooms at some point, yet the system failed to see them fully. I knew art could be their lifeline, just as it had been mine. But as many of you know, a teacher's identity isn't always valued, and advocating for inclusivity can come at a cost. One day, after years of dedication, tripling art program attendance, and leading overseas cultural art trips for students, I was called into the office. Several administrators sat waiting for me with my file spread across the table. They asked me point blank, "Are you a lesbian?" I froze, but I answered honestly, yes. I had always kept my personal and professional lives separate, but I had been outed. They recorded my response, and then they asked me if I was in a relationship or living with someone. I wasn't, so I could honestly say no. Later, I learned that a different answer to that second question would have cost me my job. That day, I felt afraid and devalued. I had already spent too much of my life hiding. I knew I couldn't stay somewhere that refused to accept me fully. So I made another terrifying decision, and I applied to doctoral programs. At the end of that year, I left my job, again stepping into uncertainty. When I accepted an assistantship at IU in Bloomington, it was the first time I moved away without my children. It was only an hour away. And they were adults, and most of them had already moved on to begin their lives, but that didn't make it any easier. I found myself struggling with traditional questions of what kind of woman, mother, grandmother do I want to be? Stay close and available to bake cookies and babysit, or take a risk and be an example of resilience and tenacity? Again, with the love and support of my children, at 64, I completed my PhD at Indiana University. And soon after that, I moved to Columbia, Missouri with my 2 little dogs to teach at Mizzou. Knowing no one in the state, my friends in Indiana said, go online and meet people. But that's how I met my wife. We moved in together just before COVID, a time that reshaped everything. That was 6 years ago, and 2 years ago we got married. We like to say that every COVID year equals 20 years. So soon we'll have been married for 50 years. During the pandemic, our driveway became a gathering place. What started as my wife and I sitting outside in our new neighborhood with a glass of wine soon turned into something much larger. Our neighbors joining us slowly and cautiously, one by one. This gathering brought about an impromptu accordion performance by a passing busker, many celebrations, and a loving, supportive community built in the most uncertain of times. To this day, we still gather in our driveway every Thursday at 5:30. It's more than a tradition. It's become our chosen family. At 70, I am in my 6th year of teaching at Mizzou, where I teach and advocate for future teachers and lead meditative expressive arts workshops. I am also a practicing artist, showing my work in galleries and museums. I've come to understand that strength isn't just about independence. It's about connection. For years, I thought I could go through life without asking for help, but I now know the power of community. This journey hasn't been mine alone. My tribe, which consists of my wife, my 5 children, my 7 granddaughters, and my friends have stood with me every step of the way. They are my source of encouragement, love, and understanding. They have shown me that strength lies in empathetic connection, and I strive to give love and compassion back to them and out to the world. Together, we honor our fierce and fearless ancestors, trailblazers who set the standard for resilience and tenacity. Starting my teaching career and creative journey later in life, leaving a stable job to pursue my PhD was daunting, but worth every step. I want my granddaughters to know there's nothing they can't accomplish. I may not be the cookie-baking grandmother they would like to expect, but I will teach them how to make good trouble so that others don't have to endure what I did. My journey isn't over, but with every step forward, we are moving in the right direction, and that is progress.
The hardest question to ask someone like me is, where are you from? Throughout my life, I have struggled with this simple question. I was born in Saltillo, Coahuila, Mexico, a border state across from Texas. I lived in Mexico City until I was 5. But my parents and all my grandparents are from a small village, La Compañía, in the southern state of Oaxaca, Mexico. But since the age of 7, I was raised in Mexico, as in Mexico, Missouri, just 40 minutes from here. I have found myself caught in between countries, too Americanized for Mexico and rejected from America due to the lack of proof on paper, truly belonging to neither, ni de aquí, ni de allá. Like everyone, I've had defining moments in my life, landmarks that set a before and after, moments that added complexity to this feeling. One such moment has defined my very existence till this day. It's the year 1999. Young me had spent months begging her parents, who were in the United States, to return to Oaxaca so we could live happily taking care of goats and cattle in the countryside of La Compañía. Eventually, I would be convinced by my mother that, and honestly, not that I had any choice, but that I would love Los Estados Unidos. She would say, oh, but you should see the parks here, and the toy stores, and the beautiful schools. You're going to learn English and become bilingual, and someday be a professional. After 6 months, my younger brother and I set out to reunite with my parents. I remember hugging my grandmother, my dad's mother, goodbye as she cried intensely. I promised her I would return soon. Now, as an adult, I understand why my grandmother cried as she did that night. She knew that I would in fact not return soon, that our story would be the same story of many families who go north and sometimes never return. She knew that a better life for me would rob her of watching me grow up. She knew that if she were blessed, maybe someday she would see me as an adult. She knew that a relationship would go only as far as phone calls and maybe pictures. She would no longer be able to braid my hair or take me swimming in the beautiful river that flows in the middle of La Compañía. In 2010, another defining moment came. It was 11 p.m. on a fall school night, and I was frantically awoken by my mother at her home in Mexico, Missouri. She needed me to help with interpreting because my father had been detained by a sheriff deputy. I remember feeling like I had been punched in the stomach. I laid there, closing my eyes tightly, praying that this was a horrible dream. That night, I had to face my reality. I had to face the pain of what I knew all of this would mean. To face the truth that we were undocumented. My parents were always very honest with me about our status, and I was told to never talk about it or do anything to attract attention. Nothing like this, of course. When you are the oldest daughter in an immigrant home from a very young age, you carry all the worries, this including but not limited to the care of your younger siblings, the finances of the home, cooking, cleaning, being the interpreter, and of course, all of the fears of what it means to be undocumented in the United States. But in many ways, my status did not fully affect me until I was in high school, and I couldn't get a driver's license or a job because I didn't have a social security number. In my senior year of high school, I attempted to take a college-level writing class. I was so excited about this class, but when it came time to fill out the documents for the college credit, I freaked out because it asked for my social security number. I didn't have an adult to confide in about my situation, so I dropped the class and lied to my teacher that I would rather take poetry. The rest of the year felt similarly disappointing as the reality of my immigration status set in. I couldn't apply for scholarships because they all require you to be a U.S. citizen. I didn't even know how to apply for college as an undocumented immigrant, and reaching out for help would mean that I would have to tell someone my biggest secret. Carrying secrets is heavy, and one lie leads to another. The night my father was detained, the sheriff deputy pulled my dad over while he was driving home from work and alleged that the little light above the license plate was out. This was not true, but my dad couldn't present a driver's license or documentation of legal status, so the deputy arrested him and turned him over to ICE. My father was deported on April of 2011. I graduated high school 1 month later, And then my mother made the hardest decision of her life to return to Mexico with my younger brothers that August. I declined to join them as I knew I would be more useful for them financially if I stayed in the US. After she left, I did what I had to do to survive. This meant working 2 jobs. I worked at a factory job from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., and then at a Mexican restaurant from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. In a way, I felt like I was numbing the pain of my family's separation by working nearly around the clock. 1 year later, June 15, 2012, I was sitting at my restaurant job when I got a phone call from my lifelong best friend. She was crying and said, "It's happening. He's signing the executive order." I ran to turn on the news and watched President Obama talking about deferred action for childhood arrival, better known as DACA. The relief that I had so desperately needed was finally happening. The qualifications for the program were that you had to have entered the country before the age of 16 with proof of continuous residency in the US since June 15 of 2007, be finished or enrolled in high school, and have a clear criminal record. Of course, I met all of these qualifications, so as soon as the application was available, I signed up. My attorney warned me that I was basically telling the government that I was here and undocumented. So, if any other administration decided to do away with the protection, they have all my information and could deport me. In spite of this, I knew the benefit would outweigh the risk. Once approved, I was able to get a driver's license, get a social security number, get a better paying job, and go to college. I have to renew DACA every 2 years. We DACA recipients call this our subscription to the United States. And it currently costs $605 to apply on your own, but of course, with the help of an immigration attorney, the cost is much more higher. In 2021, I was able to return to Mexico for the first time since I had left as a child. DACA recipients can apply for a special travel document known as advanced parole, which allows you to leave the country under special circumstances without losing DACA status or being banned from the US for 10 years. The cost of the process is currently $630, and of course, with assistance, it's more. Returning to Mexico was a dream come true. I hadn't seen my parents in 10 years. My grandmother actually had no idea I was returning. I bought her the biggest bouquet of roses. My dad told her she had a delivery, and when I moved the roses, she saw me again after 22 years. We embraced tightly and cried. I can only imagine that's what heaven must feel like. Returning to Mexico was so healing, as I was able to connect my complex identity to everything I had left behind. Nothing would return the years I had lost, the family I would never see again, such as my maternal grandmother who had already passed away. But I was able to understand my parents and the sacrifices they made for us. Being a mother myself by then, I understood that I too would do the same to give my children a chance at a better life. Their sacrifices were not in vain as I stand here before you all today. To understand where I come from is to understand who I am today. I come from vibrant colors and dirt roads, the smell of a wood stove and the warmth of fresh tortillas, the taste of mezcal, chocolate, y mole, a river that runs through a village, watermelon on a hot Missouri day, see you soons that last decades. A community member that taught me to read English, the women that have loved me as their own, generational wounds that never healed, broken dreams and lack of opportunities, the warm smile of my second grade teacher, a sunset over Los Cerros, the hands that braided my hair, a mother's prayer that protects me daily, oppression, determination, resilience, sacrifices too heavy to carry. I come from a place where hope never dies.
It was almost midnight on a cold, rainy November night when I was picking up a 17-year-old mom off Rice Road and checking her into a hotel. She had been homeless for almost a year, house hopping with a baby girl no more than 6 months old. It was clear that she had no real guidance or resources. The sadness behind her eyes let me know she had experienced a lot for her young age. But there was also determination and fire in her eyes, a hope for more. As I pulled out my ID and credit card at the front desk of the extended stay, I realized the parallels of this young girl's situation and mine. Growing up, my brother always told me that out of the two of us, I was the one meant to be successful. For as long as I can remember, he was always my biggest supporter. We were raised to believe that the only two people we could depend on were each other, so that's who we learned to lean on the most. And he also complied with all of my shenanigans. For as long as I can remember, I've wanted to sing, be an entertainer. On the weekends, my cousins used to come over and we'd pop in a Paula Abdul or Whitney Houston cassette tape. There you go. And we'd grab the nearest object that looked like a microphone, and we'd perform in the mirror of my bedroom. Sometimes, much to his chagrin, my brother would be pulled into the antics. I remember when the music video for Madonna's Vogue premiered on MTV. I made a big point of learning the dance moves from that video, and then pulled my brother into the mirror to do it with me. Again, my biggest supporter. One year for Christmas, I couldn't have been no more than 10. My parents bought me a microphone that came with a stand that had a pedal with different light settings. And with this magic microphone, I became a star. I used to make mixtapes and pretend that they were my songs and perform full-out concerts in my bedroom. And when I say full out, I mean choreography, wardrobe changes, there was a set list, oh yeah. This is something that carried on for years, but as you grow older, you tend to put childhood dreams aside. So even though singing was my heart, I believed that it was in my best interest to put away the silly dreams and become more responsible. If being responsible means getting pregnant at 17 during your first semester of college. Yeah, he was the quarterback of the football team, and surprisingly, I was not the captain of the cheerleading squad. No, I rocked a different uniform, playing the clarinet in the marching band. Sexy, am I right? I also remembered the moment I realized I was pregnant. I didn't need a pregnancy test to figure that out. There are some things that we as women just know about our bodies, and for me, this is one that I knew. I also remembered the fear. So what is the best solution in this situation? Cover and deny until the last minute, duh. When I reached my last trimester, I finally had to return home from school and face the music. And within weeks of me returning home, I was holding my little girl in my arms. My best friend of 25 plus years now didn't even know I was pregnant. We were supposed to be rooming together for our second year of college. And I remember the day that she called me to start planning for the semester, and I was like, hi, yeah, I had a baby. The birth of my daughter, Chantal, my boo bear, changed everything for me. It was like being lost in the woods, and suddenly God placed a compass in my hand. All roads led to her. Everything I said and everything I did. She's like right there. I was doing with her in mind. And just as he did when we were growing up, my brother came alongside me, and the dynamic duo became the terrific trio. We both went back to school and found better employment so we could make a good life for her. Life wasn't easy by any means, but when I wanted to give up, I remembered who I was and who was watching. My brother continued to be a huge part of Chantal and I's lives as the years went by. He truly helped me in raising her. Then, in 2017, the unthinkable happened. I received a phone call from my brother's employer saying that he was being rushed to the hospital. On July 8th, just a day after his 37th birthday, my brother died from congestive heart failure. My person, my rock, was gone. The person that I could call or text at any hour, at any situation, was just gone. But worst of all, he wouldn't be around to see the successes of his niece. Until this day, that breaks me. I know. I felt like my world was ending, and I felt like giving up. But I had to keep going. I knew that that is what he would have wanted for me and for Chantal. I invested in my career, assisting young mothers like the one I told you about from that cold November night. And I took the responsibility I had as a mom and for the moms I cared for very seriously. Through all of that, my love for music was always present. And it's funny, when something is meant for you, the Lord will bring that opportunity right back around. In spring of 2019, a little birdie started whispering in my ear. And what did she have to say? I should start a band. My immediate response was, excuse me? On what part of God's green earth would it be a good idea to add starting a band to my already overflowing plate? And yet there I was, my very own Jiminy Cricket. Except mine came in the form of a superstar jazz artist and who brought along her friends to turn up the heat. And let me tell you, peer pressure still works as an adult. I finally relinquished, and on a hot 4th of July afternoon, I sat in the living room with my bandmates, eating barbecue and tossing around band names. Well, what do you do when you can't land on a good name? Well, you find a band generator, of course. Of course, Rochara, what is your favorite color? Your favorite artist? Choice of drink? And the questions continued. If anyone wonders how you land on the band name the Honey Doves, my favorite drink is hot tea with honey and lemon. The color, purple. Artist, Prince. We got our first gig in February of 2020, and it was a great success. We were ready to take on Central Missouri with our neo-soul and funk originals and covers. And does anyone remember what happened in March of 2020? That's right, the world shut down. Not to be thwarted, the band forged ahead, writing and rehearsing through Google Docs and Zoom. And in fall of 2021, we hit the pavement running with a reintroduction concert and quickly began to book gigs. In April of 2023, we were invited to perform at Treeline, AKA Roots and Blues. Wow. We were ecstatic about the exposure this would bring, and we were already in the process of recording our first album. And wouldn't it be a killer idea to have the release coincide with our performance? By the sounds, who can remember what happened with Treeline? It didn't happen. Canceled within a month of the event. But what happens to a dream deferred? Deferred being the optimal word, as deferred is not denial. In this case, the answer to that question is plan your own party. On October 6th of that year, we threw our own album release party. Looking back, every step of my journey, every detour, every heartbreak has led me here. From that little girl singing into a toy microphone to a woman who has learned to embrace her power. Life has thrown its fair share of challenges my way, but I've faced them with the same fire I saw in that young mother's eyes on that cold November night. The same fire that my brother always saw in me. I know that he would be proud of me, and his love and belief in me remain my guiding force. I learned that dreams don't expire, they evolve. They wait for us to be ready. And when they call again, we have to be brave enough to answer. On October 6th, I stood on stage, surrounded by the people who believed in me, and I sang not just for myself, but for the little girl I used to be. For my brother, for Chantal, and for every woman who has ever doubted her own strength. That night wasn't just an album release. It was proof that no matter where we come from, no matter how many times we get knocked down, we can rise again. We can build our own stage, and we can shine.
Wherever you go, whatever you do, oh, please remember I'll always be there for you. You don't have to call, you don't have to say, just think about me and I'll be on my way. You don't have to worry, I'm sure you'll be fine. 'Cause if you stay happy, then what's yours is mine. Wherever you go, whatever you do, remember that I'll always be there for you. Wherever you are, think of your dreams. Oh, please remember, life ain't always what it seems. for each rainy day,
that
comes your way. The sun will come shining and it'll be okay. Keep on smiling, every girl and boy. Remember when you were children, you had toys. Wherever you are, think of your dreams. Remember that dreams become the life you lead. Hey. Oh, wherever you play, it's okay to lose. Oh, sometimes, as long as you learn from every game you choose. If one thing's for sure, you'll always endure. If you try your best at everything you do. Say what you mean and mean what you say. The price of a broken heart's too much to pay. And nothing is worth it if you don't have to try.
The higher the stakes, the higher the sky.
Wherever you go, whatever you do, please remember that I'll always be there for